Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we are studying Hosea 10. That's the prophet Hosea, chapter 10. And this is Saul Weinreb, the host for your podcast. In chapter 9, God had compared the people of Israel to a vine, to a vineyard that dried up and stopped producing good fruit. That once they had so much potential, but that potential is gone. He's going to continue with that metaphor. And as we start verse 1, Gefen Bokek Israel, the people of Israel are like a vine that is dried up and doesn't produce fruit, or doesn't produce much fruit at all. And Peri, and the fruits of Israel, the things that they do, their deeds, Yishavelo, are equal to it. The fruits of the vine are not producing, they don't grow new vines, they don't grow new grapes, they're not sweet, they don't produce good wine. Kirov lipirio, and at a time when this vine did produce, sometime in the past when it was productive and when it was full of fruit, when it was green and lush, what did they do? What did the people do when they had the potential? Hirbala mizbachos, they used all of their products, they used their productivity to build altars to idols. Kitov the arzo, when the land of the people of Israel was good and productive, what did they do? Hetivu matzevot. They made lots of altars and places of idol worship. This next verse 2 is very difficult to translate, and I've seen many different approaches. I'm going to read it. I'm going to tell you some of the difficulties, and we'll try to work through it. Cholak libam. Ato yeshamu. Cholak libam is the words that are really tough to translate, but something along the lines of he divided their hearts, or some other alternatives I'm going to mention in a minute. Ato, and now yeshamu, they have been guilty, or they have sinned. Hu ya'arof mizbachosam, he will break or crack their altars. Yishoded matzevosam, he will destroy and smash their matzevas, their pillars, their altars to idols. Now, who is this he? What does this mean? He divided their hearts. Does this mean God divided their hearts? Is this referring to he, the people of Israel, divided their hearts, meaning they separated their hearts from God? If it means the people of Israel separated their hearts from God, then the rest of the verse doesn't make that much sense. He separated their hearts, and now they have sinned. He will smash their altars, but the people themselves aren't smashing their altars. If it's referring to God himself, that God separated their hearts, what does that mean? How could God separate the people's hearts? People decide themselves to separate their hearts. God doesn't do that. So it brings up a whole host of questions. I'm going to go with the following. Cholak here, I think, does not mean separated so much as it means slippery. We see the word cholak sometimes means to slip. Sometimes like a slippery tongue or a smooth tongue, or just literally slippery, to slip on something. And cholak libam, I do believe means here, does not mean he, which is the way the word would usually mean, but it means their hearts are the object. And cholak libam, their hearts are slippery. And ato yeshamu, and now they have sinned. So if we look back at the end of the last verse, Kirov lipirio, when their fruits were great, hirbalam mizbachot, they used it for altars. Kitov arzo, when his land was good, hetivu matzevot, they went and they built lots and lots of altars to false gods. Cholak libam, when they made their hearts slippery, and ato yeshamu, and in other words, their outer actions might have been good, but inside they were deceitful. Inside they had slippery hearts, and ato yeshamu, and then they went to sin. Then who, he meaning God, will therefore destroy those things that they built, the mizbachos, the altars, and the temples to foreign gods. Ki ata yomru, because now that you have these slippery hearts, now I'm reading verse 3, and I'm going to continue with my translation of what cholak libam meant, because now that they have these slippery, deceitful hearts, ki ata yomru, now that they will say, ein melech lanu, we no longer have a king. Usually king would mean either the actual king or Kilo Yorenu et Adonai, because we no longer fear God. And what can this human king do to us? The people are saying, when they have the slippery hearts, if you recall, we had in chapter 7, verse 3, we also had a similar idea where where we discussed that the people were tricking the king. They fooled the king. The king thought that they were pretending in front of him. And if the people do no longer fear the king and they no longer fear God, what is the next result? Verse 4, Dibru Divarim, they will just say words. Alos Shav, they will make false promises. Karos Biris, they will make covenants, they will make sign agreements. Ufarach Karosh Mishpat, but the actual justice, they're going to sign these agreements, they're going to be deceitful, they're going to lie, they're going to cheat, and because that's the kind of people that they have become. And then, like the mishpat, justice, will grow and get ruined, and it will grow into thorns and weeds. Al talmei sadai, on the plowed furrows of my fields, God says, or on the plowed furrows of the fields. This is what will grow. Instead of having a plowed field growing nice produce and grain, they're going to be growing thorns, because the people are full of lies and deceit. And what happened, le'eglos beis oven yaguru shechan shomron, the people that live in Samaria is the capital of the northern kingdom. They are, yaguru means to fear, it also means to worship. They are worshiping the calves in the houses of iniquity. They're worshiping the calves that they set up in their temples because they abandoned Jerusalem. Ki aval alav amo, because the nation itself is mourning him. Uchimarav alav yagilu, while the priests are celebrating and pretending that they have something great, the people themselves know that this calf is worthless, is useless. And why are they mourning? Al kivodo, over the honor of the people, ki galami menu, because all of their honor is lost. They are shamed, they are embarrassed in front of the world. Gam oso, even it itself, the calf itself, la'ashir yuval, they will bring it to Assyria. When they become subservient, their calf, their supposed god, is going to end up being a tribute to the king of Assyria. Min chol melech yarev, they're going to bring it as an offering to the king of Assyria. Boshna Ephraim yikach, what will the people of Ephraim, the people of the northern kingdom of Israel have? They will only take embarrassment and shame. V'yevosh Yisrael me'atzaso, and Israel will become embarrassed because of their ideas. Nidmeh Shomron Malkah, the kings of Samaria, the kings of this land, which has become so full of deceit and corruption, will cease to exist. Kiketzef al pnei mayim, like you have the foamy white bubbles on top of the water, it just dissipates. V'nishbedu bamos aven, and these shrines or altars or temples to iniquity will become destroyed. Chatas Yisrael, these which are the sins of Israel. Kots v'dardar yalel mizbochosam, eventually thorns and weeds will grow over their altars. V'amru leharim kasunu, and they will say to the mountains, bury us. In other words, swallow us up, because we no longer want to exist. As if the altars themselves are saying to the heights and the hills, fall upon us, bury us, we no longer want to be here, we are so ashamed of ourselves. Mimeha Giva, from the days of Giva. Giva, I'm assuming, like I did in the last chapter, Giva refers to one of the most awful sins in the history of the people, which was the concubine of Giva, which happened in the tribe of Benjamin, is like the paradigm example of corruption, the paradigm example of immorality. Chatas Yisrael, from those days already they have sinned so badly. Sham amadu, there they stood. Lo tasigem bagiva milchama al bnei alva. There they there they stand in Giva, and they will never be. It will never reach them the war upon the people that are so sinful and so full of deceit. Be'avosi, God says in verse 10, be'avosi ve'esorem, when I and I'm translating this pasuk, this verse, similar to the Radak, the way he translates it. Be'avosi ve'esorem, it is my desire that I should remove them. And how do I remove them? V'usfu alehem amim, and the nations will gather upon them. And the pasuk kind of splits. It almost should be a second pasuk. It should be a second verse here. So this is the first half of verse 10. The second half really continues into verse 11 when it says, "Bi'asram lishtei onosam." When I tied them, back then, when I took them into the land of Israel, when I redeemed them, when I made them into a people, I took the northern kingdom of Israel, the southern kingdom of Judah, I tied them both into a harness, asram, into a harness, to ask them to plow. I wanted them to be productive, to build, to plow. And what happened? Ephraim, and back in those days, God says, Ephraim eglo milumada. Ephraim was then a calf that was very skilled. It was a good calf. It had so much potential. It could have done so much. Ohavti ladush. It had so much love to thresh, to do its job, to do its work. Vani avarti al tuv tzavara. And I placed a yoke upon its good part of its neck, in order to lead it in the right direction. This is the idea of the Torah God gave the people, and the direction that He gave them, and the teaching that He gave them, and the prophets and the messages He gave them to send them off the right way. Arkiv Ephraim, I asked Ephraim to be the one that does all of this quality work. Yacharosh Yehuda, I asked Judah to plow. Yishaded lo Yaakov, I asked Yaakov to do the smoothing out of the field that goes the last stage of the plowing. I asked the entire people to do that together. And what did I say? I said, Ziru lachem, plant for yourselves. What should you plant? Litzidakah, plant for yourselves for righteousness. Kitzru lefi chesed, what should you harvest? You should harvest kindness. Niru lachem nir, you should plow for yourselves fresh land. V'es, and a time lidrosh es Adonai, make time to search and seek God. This is what I set them in place. I gave them everything they needed. I harnessed them properly. I gave them the instructions, and I wanted them to do tzedakah, to do righteousness. I wanted them to do chesed, to do kindness. I wanted them to search for God. Ad yavo, until God will then come. When you search for Him, what will He do? He will come v'yoret tzedek lachem, and He will teach you righteousness. He will teach you how to learn. But what did you do? Instead, charashtem resha. You went ahead and plowed evil. Avloso kitzartem. You ended up harvesting sin. Achaltem pri kochash. You ended up eating weak, bad, poor fruit. Kivatachta. Why? Kivatachta bedarkecha berov gibarecha. Because you had faith in yourselves. You were arrogant. You thought you were strong and powerful. And because of your arrogance, you ended up reaping what you sowed. And you sowed evil and you reaped evil. V'kom sha'on ba'amecha. And what's going to end up happening? The noise of destruction is going to come to your nation. V'chol mivtzorecha yushad. And all of your fortresses will be destroyed. Kishod Shalman Beis Arbel B'yom Milchama. This was an example. Shalman was a king who had destroyed this place, Beis Arbel, in a vicious battle. It's just an example of how bad the destruction is going to be. Eima al Banim Rutasha. He destroyed women and children as well. That's how bad it's going to be. Kacha Asa Lachem Beis El. This is what your Beis El, the house of God, that this means not a real God. This is God with a small g that you built for yourselves. This is what happened because you went in that direction instead of the right direction. Because the evilness of your evil, bashachar, in the morning, soon, nidmo nidme melech Yisrael, the kingdom of the northern kingdom will cease to exist. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful chapter 10. Looking forward to studying chapter 11 together.